Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. A third Republican debate is in the books as presidential primary voting is 2 months away. The debates make the news usually for one-liners or insults rather than policies and platforms. Will the debates continue? And who will be on the next debate stage? Let's bring in South Carolina Senator and Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott, who is battling not only his fellow competitors, but also battling the flu. Let me start by asking, how are you feeling? Dallas won this afternoon, so I guess you're feeling a little bit better, but how are you feeling, and when are you going to get back on the campaign trail?
Well, Trey, anytime Dak Prescott has 5 touchdowns, you feel better about everything. I've been drinking a lot of water. I'll be down for another couple of days, but I'm looking forward to getting back on the campaign trail. Without any question, Trey, one of the things I would recommend to every single American, I know it's not possible, by the way, if you ever want to love your country more, run for president. Traveling this country, meeting people has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my entire life. I love America more today than I did on May 22nd. But when I go back to Iowa, it will not be as a presidential candidate. I am suspending my campaign. I think the voters who are the most remarkable people on the planet have been really clear that they're telling me not now, Tim. I don't think they're saying, Trey, no, but I do think they're saying not now. And so I'm going to respect the voters, and I'm going to hold on and keep working really hard and look forward to another opportunity.
You are suspending your presidential campaign. You have plenty of money. You have the highest approval numbers of any candidate that is running, and you're a couple of states away from coming to a state where you are beloved, and you are suspending your presidential campaign.
Romans 8:28 is such an important scripture. It says that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I think the message is clear for me right now. I am indeed suspending the campaign, but I am going to remain as committed to making sure that this country chooses the right person by enjoying the journey of just helping people everywhere throughout South Carolina and throughout our country. We have an amazing country. I'm very thankful to be in America. We should all be proud of this country. I was a kid, Trey, as you know, nearly failed out of high school as a freshman. And here I am, was running for president just a few minutes ago.
I'm trying to process this information, and I'm trying to do it on live television. So forgive me. You are the highest-ranking African-American Republican politician in the country. You were asked to give the response to the State of the Union, and I did not hear a single negative word about your response. I mean, that's usually a death sentence for people. You gave a great response to the State of the Union. You gave a nominating speech in 2020. You have introduced opportunity zones, and you have worked on criminal justice reform. Maybe I shouldn't ask you. Maybe I should ask the voters what it says about the Republican Party that someone with that resume is suspending his presidential campaign.
You know, I'll say without any question, the voters are smart, they are savvy, and I think what our country is going through right now is a very challenging time. And our goal should be to unite this country and not take advantage of the divisions of this country. And the more time we spend talking about the goodness of America, the more time we spend talking about the future of this America, the more time we spend talking about having faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future, the better off we will be as Americans, and the more likely we are to come back together to be that one nation under God.
Because of your personality and, frankly, how beloved you are, even among your fellow competitors, you would be a highly coveted endorsement. Do you see yourself endorsing any other presidential candidate?
Well, Trey, the voters are really smart. I would have to know each person to tell them who they should vote for based on what their priorities are. I'm going to recommend that the voters study each candidate and their candidacies and frankly, their past and make the best decision for the future of the country. The best way for me to be helpful is to not weigh in on who they should endorse.
Would you consider being someone's running mate if you were asked? I've read stories, Senator. I've never heard you talk about it, but I've heard other people talk about you being a potential vice presidential candidate.
Trey, I'll be honest with you. I ran for president to be president. I believe that I could have taken this country to new heights with great unity on conservative principles. Optimism comes from being tough. The truth is, I don't know how to bring the country better together other than running for president. That's what the Lord put on my heart. I think I was called to run. I was not called to win, but I certainly was called to run. And I'll say this, that being vice president has never been on my to-do list for this campaign, and it's certainly not there now. But I look forward to working hard to make sure that in the future I can continue to win the respect and the admiration of voters, even the ones who don't agree with me.
I think it was just a few months ago, you were at the Reagan Library in California giving a speech that was full of optimism and hope. I mean, Reagan coined the phrase morning in America, but you were close behind with your view of what this country could be and the promise and the potential. You mentioned not never, but not now. Do you think that this is just a time and a season issue where that's just not what Republican voters, the optimism and the hopefulness they appreciate it. They obviously love you. Your approval numbers would not be what they are, but they want something angrier. I'm trying to process. Trying to process the results.
Well, listen. At the end of the day, I do think that sometimes optimism in the midst of chaos isn't seen through the proper prism. Without any question, I'm an optimist because I've gone through the fire. I've had a miserable beginning, but I've had the blessing of a great God who's always on time and being born an American, which is like winning the lottery of citizenship. So the truth is that what I offer today is what I'll offer tomorrow and every day going forward, is that America can do for anyone what she's done for me. We have to believe that it's possible. And believing that it's possible gives us more strength today to fight the battles tomorrow. And I'm going to continue to work on that message. And I do think that message will have more traction every day going forward. But we definitely have to have a consistently conservative messenger who inspires this country.
All right. So if I have heard you correctly this evening, your presidential campaign is suspended. You have no plans to endorse anyone. You ran to be the president, not the vice president. I think some people run for president to be vice president, but you're not one of them. You remain a United States senator. And I think you've been hired through 2028, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah. All right. So you are leaving the presidential race, but I take it you are not leaving public service.
That's correct, Trey. I mean, listen, I love America. I love South Carolina. And I hope that the South Carolinians love me half as much as I do them. And our state, if that's true, I'll be in public service for as long as they want me to, and the good Lord allows me to.
What will be your main takeaway from having done something that so very, very few people, I mean, you noted your upbringing, you noted the fact that you were a late bloomer academically. I think I can say that. I think that's fair to say. So
that's very fair to say. Yes, sir.
What are your takeaways from doing something that so very few of us will ever have the chance to do, which is to run to be the leader of the greatest country on earth?
Well, Trey, it'll probably take me, maybe we'll do a show in a couple of weeks and I can answer that question more thoroughly. But I would say today that one of my most important takeaways is to speak to every American in this country. We must come together. Our foundation is strong because it was built on absolute universal truth. The future of this nation depends on the present. The more we work together, the more we find paths forward on conservative principles, the brighter the future will be for this nation. That's one of the most important lessons I take away. Number two, our nation has some real issues that we have to battle through. 70,000 deaths because of fentanyl in the last 12 months because of a wide open, insecure, and unsafe border. We've got to close that southern border. I believe we have sleeper terrorist cells in this nation already because of that southern border being wide open. I was on the south side of Chicago just less than a month ago, Trey, and those people living on the south side are good people. They want safe neighborhoods. They want good schools. I believe that the Great Opportunity Party has more solutions for the south side of Chicago than the 100-year monopoly that the Democrats have had in that city. Going on the south side and having time with Reverend Brooks, it changed my view in such a positive way. The more time we spend working together, the better off we are as a nation. I learned that on the campaign trail. And I also tell you, when you're in rural Iowa talking to farmers, or New Hampshire or South Carolina, the one thing you understand is there's dignity in all work. People work hard in this country. They invest their resources. They pay their taxes. They just want a fair deal. They don't want the playing field to be unlevel for them. They want the playing field to be level for them. And if you love America, you got to love Americans. And that's one of the lessons. And the last lesson I will say this, and hopefully we'll have a chance to do this again, is that the anti-Semitism that we're seeing on our college campuses and our streets is disgusting. I'm a black man. I understand racism and discrimination, but I got to tell you, what we're seeing from an anti-Semitic approach today, the anti-Semitism on the streets and on the college campuses, it's vile, it's disgusting, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's unethical. We should do battle in this nation. We who are not Jewish should stand in the gap for every Jewish American and tell the country, those folks who disagree with those of us who believe in fairness, you're not going to do it on my watch. You're not going to do it in my face. You're not going to do it on my campus. You're not going to do it in my house or my job. We have to stand together and against anti-Semitism. That's absolutely essential. And I'll tell you this, Trey, everywhere I go, I see Americans rising up against anti-Semitism. We did it against racism. We continue to do it every day against racism, but we have to do it against anti-Semitism, and we got to do it. We have to do it on college campuses where the fervor is so strong. But we're making progress. I'm going to spend a lot of time on college campuses and fighting for common sense, fairness, and treating each other as we would want to be treated, especially our Jewish Americans.
Tim Scott, Senator from the great state of South Carolina, if he had another life, he would be a preacher. And he reminds us again tonight that God calls you to be obedient, even if that is not always successful as others define it.
Amen.
Suspending his presidential campaign, but continuing in public service to his beloved state of South Carolina. Senator, thank you for joining us on a Sunday night and sharing this with us.
God bless you. We'll see you soon, Dre.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.